What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Adventures Tower, and we need to talk about Doctor freaking Doom. Doctor Doom might be one of the best Marvel characters ever created, and he's certainly my favorite Marvel villain, and the rumor is he's on his way to the MCU. And so I thought in this video we could talk about Doom in the comic books, like why is he so dope, why do people love him so much, and we could speculate about how Marvel Studios might be bringing all of that spice into the character for the MCU. And yeah, it's going to be freaking awesome. You see, Doctor Doom has that quality that all the best villains have, where he thinks he's actually the hero of the story, except that in the case of Doctor Doom, he might actually be right. But let's first start with talking about the origin of Doctor Doom in Marvel Comics, and it is pretty freaking wild. Doctor Doom's origin story really begins with his mother, who is a witch, and his father, who's an inventor and a man of science. When Doom was a child, his mother makes a deal with Mephisto to save her people, and the magic that she's gifted with by Mephisto absolutely works, but has dark consequences. She does kill her oppressors, but ends up also killing many children from her village. She renounces her powers and regrets the deal that she made, but she does end up dying and dies in the arms of her husband, and she makes Warner Von Doom promise to stop their son Victor from walking down the same dark path she did. Dr. Doom's dad would later be asked by the leader of their village to help a dying noble, and despite having incredible technology and a huge IQ, Warner Von Doom is unable to save the dying noble, and he is blamed for her death. Trying to save his son, he takes Victor, goes out into the dead of winter in the Baltics, and he runs away, and he does end up saving Doom. I mean, Victor lives, but his father does not. The young Victor, grief-stricken, then devotes himself completely to the study of science and technology like his father, and also the study of the dark arts and witchcraft. He discovers a case filled with magical items and materials to learn spells that his mother had, and he utilizes a lot of the leftover technology that his dad had. And this is really what makes up the power set of Doctor Doom. He is one part incredible technologist and a brilliant mind, much like Reed Richards and Tony Stark. And he is another part incredible sorcerer and controller of the mystic arts, much like Doctor Strange or the Scarlet Witch. And Victor Von Doom's first crazy invention was the life model decoy. These were lifelike robots that could replicate himself or any other person using technology and sorcery. Using these weird decoy robots, Victor overthrows the Baron of Latveria, who he considered to be responsible for the death of both his parents. But in doing so, he catches the curiosity of the United States government, who hires Victor and brings him over to the United States to help them build weapons. And this was also the time in which Victor was attending university in New York, where he, of course, meets his rival Reed Richards. Now, this is where things get really wild, because this whole time while Victor was going to school and also working with the US government, he was really utilizing the resources available to him to create a machine that combined science and sorcery to allow him to enter hell and try to fight Mephisto to save his mother's damned soul. One day, when Victor was not there, Reed Richards stumbles into his room and looks at the schematics of this machine. Victor confronts Reed, but Reed tries to warn Victor that there's a flaw in the machine, and if he uses it, chaos will ensue. Doom ignores the warning from Reed Richards because he's Victor Doom, and he uses the machine, and it is successful for a time. But the machine's flaw was real, and it explodes, scarring the left side of Victor's face. It is at this point in the story that Victor is told by an old love interest of his that Latveria is in chaos. Doom goes back to Latveria and helps liberate his people, but he is then sought out by a weird group of monks, and these group of monks are dedicated to the use of sorcery and technology together, and they claim that Victor is some kind of a messiah or a prophesized figure for them. It is here where Victor Von Doom truly becomes Doctor Doom, forsaking everything that a normal man would want, and he goes to study with the monks and has them encase his body completely in a weird technological, mystical, magical armor that would enhance his abilities dramatically. And Victor actually had the faceplate of this armor welded right to his skin as it was still hot, searing and mortally deforming the flesh on his own face. But he didn't really care because now he was Doctor Doom and he was never going to take that armor off. And the last really important piece to forming Doctor Doom as a character in Marvel Comics is that he invents time travel, and using his time travel platform, he looks ahead at multiple future versions of Earth. And almost all of these futures are real bad. Humanity's destroying themselves, they're destitute, they're desperate, they're dying, they're hungry. It's not good. But there are a few futures where humanity thrives, and Doom realizes that in all of those futures, he rules over humanity. And so with all of his new technological and magical powers and the knowledge that he himself must conquer and rule humanity if they are to have a good future, Doctor Doom goes out into the world and becomes the greatest Marvel villain there ever was. And so now let's talk about the character in the MCU. Like, will they bring some of that flavor, some of that juice to the character? I certainly hope so. I mean, I personally love to see like a series, like a big Disney Plus series similar to the Moon Knight show, but with Victor just going through that process, like being the young man, his mother making the deal with Mephisto, his father failing to save the noble, all of it. Like, put all of that into it. And then, of course, his moments in New York with Reed Richards are awesome and legendary, and he literally goes into hell. Like, literally tell that exact same story in a big Disney Plus series and end it with him and looking out into the time stream and realizing that he has to be the ruler of all humankind. And you could take that series and lead it right into a big movie where Doom does something crazy. I mean, there are a ton of stories from Marvel's history where Doom does insane things, really gets a lot of power in an attempt to either save or conquer humanity, which really he views as the same thing. Some of my favorite Doctor Doom things from the comics that I'd love to see in the MCU are like when he actually participates in the tournament of the Vishanti to become the Sorcerer Supreme, and he doesn't win the tournament, but he sort of becomes endeared to Doctor Strange, and Stephen owes Victor a favor. And then the two of them literally go into hell and they trick Mephisto in this crazy team-up battle scenario and end up freeing the soul of Victor's mom. There's a moment when Sue Storm from the Fantastic Four is dying because she's absorbed Johnny Storm's powers, and there's all this crazy cosmic stuff that's going on, but basically Reed cannot help her. He cannot fix her, but Victor does, and he saves Sue's life, and as a prize for doing so, he gets to name their daughter. Yeah, that's right. Valeria Richards is actually named by Doctor Doom, and Valeria actually grows up to consider Victor something of an uncle. In fact, there's a moment in comics where Valeria and Franklin go to live with Victor Von Doom in Latveria. There's also a really wild moment in comics where Doctor Doom goes before the god Bast of Wakanda. He pleads his case for wanting to take over humanity, but wanting to do so for noble intent, and the Panther god Bast literally judges Victor Von Doom as worthy and pure of heart, and Bast agrees to give Victor an incredible amount of vibranium and a bunch of power from that vibranium. And that's when, like, Doctor Doom becomes almost godlike, and all the Avengers and people have to try to stop him. It was really freaking crazy. And then, of course, in the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars, which I reference a lot as I do think it's going to be heavily adapted in what Marvel does with their Secret Wars, Victor Von Doom goes around the multiverse collecting up versions of Owen Reese, aka the Molecule Man, fan, he utilizes a bunch of these molecule men as cosmic bombs to defeat the Beyonders. He then funnels all of their power into a molecule man from the 616 universe, and using their insane power, grabs up different pieces of the multiverse, saving it and creating Battleworld. So in that sense, Doctor Doom technically saves the multiverse. Now, did he technically make the incursions happen way faster than they were supposed to? I mean, yeah, maybe, but still, he did save the multiverse. And any one of these crazy moments from Marvel Comics would be incredible to see adapted into the MCU, but what makes all of these moments so freaking awesome is the character of Victor himself. I mean, he's incredibly intelligent, super cunning, very powerful with his technology and his suit, but also his magical abilities. But at the end of the day, he's actually not a bad dude. He is an orphaned kid that grew up wanting to attain power to actually save humanity. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of empathy or room for other people's opinions on how humanity should go about its business. That's what makes him complex. That's what makes him compelling. And his arrogance is probably just as humongous as his power level. But now let's get specific about a couple of different things. Like, how do we actually think Marvel Studios is going to utilize Doctor Doom? And I will give a slight spoiler warning here, because we're going to talk about some rumors and some leaks and some things that are out there that I don't think are like super clear. Like, it's on the nose exactly what they're going to do, but they do sort of hint at when he'll be coming into the MCU and what he will be doing. The most recent rumors on this is that Marvel will be introducing Victor Von Doom and Latveria in the Wakanda Forever film, but it's probably going to be in a post-credit scene after the film is over. From what I've heard, Marvel Studios has created a Doctor Doom suit for the MCU, and oh my goodness, what I wouldn't give to get a peek at what that suit looks like. And Victor's Prime Minister, Lucia von Bardas, has also been created according to leaks and rumors. Now, either Lucia or Victor will be seen in costume in a post-credit scene for Wakanda Forever. That's the rumor, and the context is very vague, but a lot of people are assuming that the conflict between Namor and Wakanda could have even been engineered by Doctor Doom, and Doctor Doom kind of having these machinations and being secretly behind crazy plots on the planet is nothing new for the character. But a big question that fans have is like, is Doctor Doom going to be elevated to some crazy level as a villain right away in Marvel Studios, and will he have something to do with the MCU's Secret Wars? And I actually do think that's on the table, because you see, it's Doctor Doom's time traveling platform that eventually allows Nathaniel Richards, aka Kang the Conqueror, to re-enter the time stream and start manipulating history. And Doctor Doom and Kang have actually teamed up multiple different times throughout Marvel Comics history. And I think with Kang being such a driving force for the coming multiversal calamities, possibly the incursions, and the road to Marvel Studios' Secret Wars, I think Doctor Doom being linked to Kang is going to be an important way to help Victor become a very important part of what is happening. Because Kang is clearly going to be a person that understands what is at stake with the multiverse collapsing and the coming multiversal conflict. But if there's any other character that would also see something like this coming and perhaps be preparing for it, it would be Victor Von Doom. And so while I do think Secret Wars in the MCU is going to be very different and Kang will be a much larger part of that story than he was in the comic books, I still think Doctor Doom could be another major player in what will go down in the next few years of Marvel and what will lead us into that Secret Wars / multiversal Avengers movie. But that's what I hope from the comics makes it into the MCU version of Doctor Doom. Let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about in this video in the comments section below.